Okay, we're live. Recording, that is.
Oh my goodness.
You're doing the
Oh, you
intro.
want me to start? Oh. That's the perfect way to start.
Yeah, this is gonna be
Hello
hilarious.
and
This is
welcome
gonna
to
be hilarious.
BookCAST. I'm Dayna and this is my dad, Keith. We
Hello.
love books. We love reading books. We love talking about books. So we hope you enjoy our BookCast. Um, Currently, we are covering Stormfront by Jim Butcher, the first in the Dresden Files series. And last week we did the first 4 chapters. And this week we're doing chapters 5 through 8. So,
Ooh. And we won't talk about Dayna's imaginary friend over there.
and you might hear a train sometimes.
Once in a while.
Once in a while, there'll be a train.
And those knees back there
So,
belong to her husband, Alex.
yeah, playing video games.
So we're
So,
on
let's
chapter
see.
4.
No, 5.
5. We did through
Chapter
chapter
5.
4.
Yes, we
Yeah.
did.
So last time
Fine.
we met Harry. We met
Murphy
Murphy, the detective that he does some stuff for.
and her partner.
Yep. And a couple of known criminals and some other good stuff. So we're continuing on. Now he's heading to a house. Actually, he's the first
No,
thing. The first thing he's doing, he's actually kind of exhausted. He's got a little bit extra cash, so he's going to a local tavern, or it's not really a bar. It's more like a
pub.
pub, more like a pub for wizards. So he's heading there to get
Yeah.
a meal that somebody else cooks and get some good homemade ale, I believe.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. And I keep saying the pub owner's name wrong. I want to say McNally. I want to say McNally's Pub, but that's not his name. The name of the pub is McAnally's. But I want to say McNally, but it's McAnally's Pub. And it's a special pub that caters to wizards. There are no video games or trivia TVs or nothing like that. There's not even a jukebox. It's he has a piano player.
Yeah, that's because they can't have any kind of electronics or technology because of the wizards that are there. And yeah, it's McAnally's. McAnally's. I got a bug in
Uh,
here.
I know, but I always want to
See,
say McNally.
and being from South Louisiana, I want to say McAnally,
No,
but it's not McAnally.
it's so bad.
Nope, it's terrible.
But yeah, it's a special pub, and there's no waitresses because McAnally is like you can come up and get your food yourself. Perfectly capable of coming and get your order at the bar yourself.
Yep, they've no jukebox. They got the piano player instead, so less likely for things to go haywire. But it's kind of like almost like it's not really a sub basement, but it's what do they call that in the house where you kind of step
What
down like into a living room?
I
It's
don't
like a
I
den
yeah, I guess a den or
because you step down into it, but it's not really meant for tall people.
yeah.
Harry
So
complains about that because he says he's got to kind of duck low to avoid the ceiling fans because there's a definite low clearance in the place.
and there's 13 of everything. 13 stools, 13 windows, 13 mirrors, just everything 13 because that's I guess a an important number in the magical realm because there's 13 of everything.
Yep, 13 bar stools. Oh, I cannot stop yawning. Why we get started and I start yawning? What's up with that?
I don't know.
I be as tired.
And of course, Mac he makes his own beer.
Yeah, that
Ale, well, ale.
really, every time I read that, I start drooling.
I don't
I
know.
could use some homemade beer.
I wouldn't mind trying the food, I guess, but beer just tastes gross to me. I like
13,
some
13 wooden columns as well, apparently.
I like some ales. He's got a burning stove.
Yep, 13 columns, and it's got carved with likenesses from folk tales and legends of the old world. And apparently, these 13 columns are spaced apart evenly to help break up and how do they put that? Random energies, the flow of random energy, so that you can you can't really
You know,
kind of breaks up some of the magic and makes the wizards a little bit more comfortable.
yeah, because wizards tend to be broody and grumpy. That's what the according to Dresden apparently.
Yep.
So after the day that he's had, he's gonna go ahead and have himself a home cooked meal.
Steak sandwich cooked in a wood burning stove and some homemade beer. That really sounds pretty damn good. And I just had
Yeah,
supper.
yeah, that steak sandwich definitely sounds like it would be delicious.
So Max
I
starts
imagine
what?
Oh, I imagine Mac to have a pretty deep kind of voice. He's like Dresden.
He doesn't really talk much.
He really doesn't. Nope. And Mac apparently is tall, so he makes this. So he has this pub, and it's hard for tall people. But Mac himself is tall. Mac himself is a tall person.
Apparently so.
And of course, Dresden talks about his day. Like he's had a terrible day, and all Mac does is like grunt.
That's all he
Let's
can
see.
do. That's all he can do. So
Now,
he's getting settled in. Harry places his order.
yeah, and they talk about this particular drug that's supposed to give you the third sight,
Yep, seems to be a
but
problem that's going on out there in the world.
and Mac just doesn't really say much of anything, just nods at him until um he's turning back to the stove, and then he's like, "You were followed." And it doesn't take Harry but like a second to realize who it is, Miss Susan Rodriguez, a reporter for one of those, like, kind of like the Inquirer. It's a really weird newspaper where they talk about aliens and oh, Elvis
Sounds
is
like my
alive
kind of
kind of
paper.
thing. Just so yeah, sounds like your kind of
Yeah, it
paper.
sounds like something I'd like to read. Hey,
But of
don't knock the
course,
Inquirer. That's good entertainment. I like that paper. Mama don't even let me buy it, by the way.
because and it's still around, isn't it?
Yes,
And
it
it still
is.
talks about the craziest
I pick it
things.
up every time we go to Walmart, but I don't get
Let's
to
see
buy
what
it.
it. And of course, she's beautiful. She's a beautiful reporter who
Well,
tends to use her looks to
you missed
to
something.
get information.
Yeah, but you missed one of the important factors of this whole when they introduce her character. He actually doesn't. He never turns around. He identifies her, and
That's
she
true.
stops because she freaks out, thinking he figured out through
Yeah.
some sort of magic she was behind him because she saw he never turned around, but he simply smelled her perfume.
Yeah.
She's obviously smart, but there's a little bit missing there. So
Yeah, and apparently she really packs on the perfume if he's able to identify her by her perfume.
yeah,
But, you know, normal people would think, hey, he's a wizard, so he didn't even turn around. So he used magic to identify me, and he's like, I just smelled her perfume. That's it.
exactly.
But I mean, anybody would be kind of, assume that, oh my God, he didn't turn around. He knows it's me.
Well, and that's kind of what he uses to keep her freaked out. He's smart enough to know that. So
And she tricked him when they first met, she tricked him into the soul gaze and she fainted.
yep.
At least she tried, you know. Yep.
So he
The
knows she's there.
Chicago
Yeah, he knows she's there to try to question him, but he's not
and
sure what it's about.
he's not gonna give anything away. Well, she's there to talk about like the murders. Yeah, she works for the Chicago Arcane. That's the name of it, the Chicago Arcane.
Yeah, that sounds like a really snazzy name. I would buy that paper, by the way.
You would, you
Yeah, I
totally
would.
would.
Heck, I'm fixing to get the history of UFOs they have for sale at Barnes and Noble.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a whole magazine. It's got the whole history of UFOs and in the UFO industry, which I guess that's what it is. It's an industry these days. But anyway,
And the Chicago Arcane, like I said, is kind of like the Inquirer, where they cover, really weird, completely untrue stories.
yep,
But every now and then, she kind of Susan gets it right
yep,
because
she
of all
taps
the
into
freaky
something
stuff.
true. Yep.
And he says she's got some instinct, you know. And he definitely finds her attractive. But I don't know, I think he kind of finds all women attractive on some level.
Yeah, yeah. But he doesn't really, so far from what I've seen from him, he doesn't do a whole heck of a lot about it. He's really kind of
No.
businesslike.
Because he's also had relationship troubles in the past.
Oh,
Um, yes, so I love. She sits at the bar and
yep.
she tries to like lean to kind of give him a little bit of a peek, but he doesn't look. He doesn't look at all.
No, well, not at
not
first.
right away.
Yeah,
Not
not
at
right
first.
away. He does sneak in a peek later on. He's not stupid.
But what I really love is that he's like, I'm pure of heart and mind. I cannot be corrupted.
Baloney.
Really, that's uh that's crazy. I'm sorry.
He can
That
definitely be corrupted.
that's some BS right there.
Yep. And she goes into this really weird series of starting to quickly ask him questions. So she's trying to throw the questions, or she's phrasing them, trying to throw him off to get him to answer them when he doesn't want to. So she's basically kind of trying to outsmart him a little bit, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, she's got to use tricks because he's not very forthcoming. He's not going to give her any information, especially
Right.
about this particular case because, um, this is a really serious case.
Well, and not only that, I mean, he can't really discuss anything on it. He's under contract with the city, and he's not supposed to say anything. And
Yeah.
plus, Murphy would kill him.
Oh, she really would.
She'd kill
She
him.
really would.
She'd tear him a new one if she even suspected he was talking to anyone from the press, much less a kook like this woman.
Mm-hmm.
But she goes through the series and she's asking him, you know, a bunch of questions, trying to get him to answer stuff officially.
And all he just says, no, 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 I'm not going to answer questions. And unfortunately, he ends up agreeing to a date with her.
And I know,
She tricks him.
oh yeah, yeah, she ends up getting her way. And it's funny because how about I ask you some questions, just answer them with a yes or no. No, I said promptly. Damn it, I'm a poor liar. And it didn't take a reporter with Susan's brains to tell it. So she kind of, her eyes glittered with cheerfully malicious ambition. Was Tommy Tom murdered by paranormal being or means? No. No, he wasn't, or no, he was. It wasn't a paranormal being. I glanced at Mac, as though to appeal for help. Mac ignored me. Mac doesn't take sides. Mac is wise.
Mac's
I,
not gonna help
I
him out
love
of
the way
this
they did
one.
that. Yeah. And he says, "No, I'm not going to answer any questions. Police have any leads? Any suspects? No. Are you a suspect yourself, Harry? Disturbing thought. No, I said, exasperated. Susan, would you mind having dinner with me Saturday night? No. I blinked at her. What? So she tricked him through the series of questions and actually got him to agree to dinner. And it was really funny.
And I kind of wonder, and maybe, that was her end goal. Maybe she threw the questions at him and probably knowing he wasn't going to give her anything because they've known each other for a little while. I mean, so maybe she did this on purpose to get him to go on a date with her,
Probably so,
to
because
maybe kind of get him.
it seems like she's flirted with him before and it never got her anywhere, and she finally got him narrowed down and got him into a dinner date. And he
Yeah.
kind of, you could tell he kind of liked it.
Yeah.
Yes, he
And
did.
I mean, once you get someone comfortable enough in a comfortable setting and put a little bit of alcohol in them, they might be more forthcoming with information.
That's exactly right.
So she, getting him to agree to this date might get everything she wants out of it.
She's thinking anyway, or maybe she's hoping. I don't know. They really don't say much about that.
Yeah, she's gonna take him to a fancy restaurant for the date.
Yeah, this what's this? No, what's it called?
Yeah, it's the pump room. I'm
Not.
sorry, that's a suggestive name.
I'm not saying anything.
I mean, this is in Chicago, right? So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know much about Chicago, but I'm wondering if that's like a real place. That's a very suggestive name.
Apparently, they have good steak. Hmm. I don't know
Hmm.
about that. Good steaks, huh? The pump room. All right, I ain't going any further than that. So
She's
she
just
kisses
like,
him a couple times on the cheek.
yep,
Says she'll be there with bells on.
yep.
Love it.
And he's wondering if this is going to be a date or an interrogation session.
It'll
And
probably be both.
probably both.
So she turns to walk out. I sort of turned to stare after her. My jaw slid off the bar as I did and landed on the floor. Had I just agreed to a date or an interrogation session? Probably both, I muttered. Yeah. So Max hand slapped his steak sandwich and fries on the table in front of him, and the interaction between the two of them basically, yeah, it's like any red-blooded man would have done the same thing I just did. Huh? Max snorted. Well, maybe not you. Max smiled, a bit mollified. And
Not like this
still,
part.
it's going to make trouble for me. It must be crazy for me to. I must be crazy to go for someone like that. Picked up my sandwich and sighed. Dumb, Max said. I just said it. I just said she was smart, Mac. Mac's face flickered into a smile, and it made him look younger, almost boyish. Not her.
Not her.
You.
You.
You can hear him with his deep voice. You.
Hmm.
I love that. Yeah. Smart girl, and she definitely outsmarted his dumb ass.
So, because of this date that he accidentally agreed to, his plans for the weekend have changed, which means he's got to go to the Lake Providence house that night if he wants to be able to talk to the vampire over the weekend
Yep.
and Miss Bianca and go on this date with her. So, he's got to hustle a little bit. And
No sleep for him.
nope.
So he's got to go do his little spell thing at the lake
Yep.
house to try to bring out a fairy.
And I really like this part at the end of chapter 5 where Mac gives Dresden a little doggy bag for his cat, Mister. Gives him a little doggy bag for Mister. I love that. I think that's precious.
Apparently,
Um,
Mac has a soft spot for the cat. I don't know. I'm not sure how to read into that, but yeah.
well, I just think it's cute because, of course, Dresden at some point divulged that he had a cat, and Mac, who sees all these wizards, of course, is going to remember Dresden,
Yeah.
and it kind of you kind of see maybe there's some sort there's a little bit of like brotherly love there or something, or I don't know. But he cares enough about Dresden to give him food for his cat. That's some sort of friendship right there.
Yeah, it does kind of allude to that for sure. You can't really deny that. Yeah, without a doubt.
And I like this line at the very end of the chapter. They say we wizards are subtle, but believe you me, we've got nothing at all on women.
Amen. Y'all are evil creatures. That's right.
Poor
I said it,
Dresden.
and
I
I'm
think he
not
gets the
scared to say it.
runaround. He gets the runaround.
He doesn't get to run
I feel
around.
so bad.
They manipulate him. Women are terrible at that.
Sure.
Evil creatures.
And then we move on to chapter 6. He goes home to get what he needs for the spell he needs to perform at Lake Providence. And Mister's not there, but he leaves the food there. And he's got his car, the Beetle, which is like a hodgepodge of different colors.
The Blue Beetle, but it's still called the Blue Beetle.
Yeah, but even though it's not really blue anymore, I mean, what it's got two different color doors. He's got a green door, a white door. The hood of the storage trunk in the front is red. It's just it's I'm sure you could definitely tell, you just it's a recognizable car. Okay, it's a recognizable car for
Yeah,
sure.
and apparently they introduce who we don't really get to know all that well just yet, but maybe in later on in the books we'll get to know Mike the super mechanic because he
Mhm.
definitely mentions him right here, and it even alludes to the fact that you don't get the kind of service Mike provides, and apparently it makes it sound like Mike may know kind of what Harry does and what he is, because it's not like Harry tries to hide it. I mean, he openly
Yeah.
advertises it. So,
Yeah.
Mac never complains. I mean, Mike never complains about the burnt seats, the claw marks all over the doors that had to be replaced. Doesn't ask questions.
He
He just does
just
the work as long as he pay cash.
Yep. And then so Dresden drives up to Lake Providence. It's a big, really expensive, high class looking community. A lot of houses, a lot of probably summer homes, I guess, places to vacation or spend the weekend because
That's what
it's
they make it
by
sound like because
yeah.
it's by a lake shore. So and it actually is a couple of states away, or at least one or two states away, because he has to go through
Indiana.
Indiana at one point to get to it because
Yeah.
it's apparently this is in Rhode Island.
Yep. And he drives up to the house.
And this is Victor Sells' house. So yeah,
Yeah.
who is the one of the two victims?
Yeah, the chick that the missing husband who hired him because he's working two cases. So he's
Was he the
going
victim? Yeah, well, he was the one. He was the guy that died, right?
Victor? No, Victor's the guy
That
that
owns the property.
went. Yeah, he went missing.
Okay.
Remember his wife hired Dresden to find him because he was digging into the occult. Because Dresden's working two cases right now that I think at some point, if I remember, connect.
Okay.
Maybe. I think the cases connect. I don't really remember. I read this like several years ago.
Yeah,
So
I know, and we're doing it like four chapters at a time. So
and it's almost like, oh, a new book because I've forgotten a lot of stuff from it. But
So anyway, he's driving up to the Sells house. So Victor's not one of the two victims that they found that got killed for magic. Victor
No.
is just missing, and he's thinking that Victor may have tried to do the magic, or okay. That's where we're at. I'm just making sure I'm staying along the
Well,
storyline.
he thinks that Victor may have gotten into something, and because of that scorpion, that dried up
Right,
scorpion
right.
necklace, he thinks that Victor may have really gotten into something he shouldn't have. But as of right now, he doesn't. He's not connecting the two cases with the other with the murders in the hotel room.
So his intent for going up to the site of the house and back to the murder site, he wants to see, he wants to bring this fairy back because he's thinking this fairy may be able to help tell him something that happened that night and may have seen something. So
Yeah,
usually
and may
this
have
particular
find.
one is usually lingering around there, kind of snooping in on action that's happened. So since he knows it's magic that took place, he's fairly certain he's going to get some answers from this fairy.
Well, he's a little apprehensive. He goes a little bit Sherlock Holmes because the house seems empty, but he notices that the trash is what is it, that the trash was still at the house,
Yeah, well, not
but
only that, but
they
like
were empty.
the basketball goal in the back had been used a lot. So even though the house seemed empty and like no one was around, everything looks well used apparently.
And he finds a film canister.
That he puts in his
Um,
pocket because he can use those to carry ingredients and stuff. So
mhm. Yeah, he even says it. The house itself looks like a rich man's love nest. So he's kind of starting to think maybe it's not, that maybe instead of the occult, Victor might be, you know having a little side chick or something.
could be.
But he explores the house. He wants to go into the house, but he doesn't. But and this part right here where he talks about he's not comfortable going into the house because he wasn't invited to go into the house, and that apparently it's not just a rule for vampires, because in this world, vampires follow that rule. You don't go into a house unless you're invited, and apparently it's just not a good idea altogether for any magical person from the Never Never to just walk into a house uninvited. Of
So
course, he says that's not harmful to him, but it can mess up the magic that he tries to do a little bit. Also, it's just not polite because he's an old-fashioned kind of guy.
and he says the
He's
place doesn't look like a family dwelling. Kind of looks like a little love nest for a rich man.
mm-hmm. Yep. He does get the sense that maybe the house is not quite empty, but no. He knocks on the door, rings the bell. Nobody's there. Nobody's answering the door. There's no lights or anything. Um, but yeah, see, the trash cans are empty. So, um, and a garbage truck, the garbage men are not gonna like walk the trash cans all the way back to the house. So that implies that somebody had to walk it all the way back to the house, which means somebody might be there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and he's like, well, it might not have been Victor's cells, but it was a little bit of a lead that maybe somebody had been there recently. So after exploring the outside of the house for a little bit, he decides to finally set up his little trap for the fairy. He picks a little place not far from the house, and he sets up his bait with a little cup and the bowl and a little thimbleful of milk. So he does a little milk and honey
Yep.
thing, and
With
he puts
a little
with
drop of his blood.
yeah, with a little drop of his blood.
Yeah, that's his bait. He's going to use that as bait to lure the fairy in. and trap them in a magical circle. Kind
Yep.
of hold them.
And he just hides and he waits. Well,
He's got to
yeah,
say the he's got to say the fairy's name
name.
exactly the way the fairy pronounces it.
Yeah.
Because everybody pronounces their name slightly different. The way you pronounce the name is very important in order for
Yeah.
this particular spell to work.
So
So
he has to pronounce
put
the
in a lot
fairy's
of
name,
detail. Yeah.
and he's not gonna say the fairy's name. You know, he's not gonna not like out loud in his head in the book. He's like, I'm not gonna tell you what the name is, but the fairy, the fairy's nickname is
I
Toot
know.
Toot.
Toot toot.
A Toot Toot. That's adorable.
I
Toot
guess.
Toot. I'm sorry, it just sounds like, a cutesy fairy name, Toot Toot. So, he draws the circle, he says the name to call Toot Toot, and he just kind of waits.
Doesn't take all that long though.
No,
About 10
about
minutes.
10 minutes.
That's it. Yeah.
And it's hard to tell at first because the way Toot Toot looks, he kind of at first mistakes him for a reflection of the moon on the surface of the lake. And you get a little description how Toot Toot is like 6 inches tall and has silver dragonfly's wings, and
Yeah.
and shaggy silken hair that's magenta. And he's captured Toot Toot before. He's used Toot Toot several times, but because they live long lives, the Fae, because they live long lives, they don't have, apparently they don't have very good memory.
Right. They forget easily, so he's able to continue catching him in the same manner. It's a good
Mm-hmm.
thing. Good thing he knows what he likes to eat because he can always get him
Yeah.
with food.
Yep. Since Toot Toot is considered a lesser Fae, and so he knows that the lesser Fae tend to really love milk and bread and honey, which, okay, this sounds like a good snack, but I have a feeling I would not like it in real life. It sounds like it would be good, right? Like a bowl of milk with some honey and some bread, but I don't know. Not a huge fan of like soggy bread.
But I mean, think about it. In a lot of the fairy tale stories, even like Lord of the Rings, they eat bread and cheese and fruits. And if you put just that on a plate, just dried bread with no butter or anything on it, a bottle of beer or a pitcher of beer or ale, some tomatoes and some fruit. I mean, look at Lord of the Rings. That's what they put on Gandalf's plate, or The Hobbit. That's what they put on
Yeah.
Gandalf's plate when he first met Thorin.
Yeah.
In real life, you probably wouldn't enjoy that meal very much, but to them,
No,
that's like a gourmet meal.
no, I like bread and meats and cheeses and stuff like that,
Yeah, but not as a meal.
oh, I could totally eat that as a meal.
Nah, I don't know if I could.
I I could. I could. Yeah,
I don't
you
think
put a
I
little,
could.
you have a little loaf of bread and, some meats and cheeses and maybe a little bit
No,
of some
there's no
grapes,
meat. It's
some
bread, cheese, and fruit.
well, yeah, I could still eat that. Cheese and fruit like grapes or an apple or something, you know.
I
I could
guess.
totally eat that. My problem is, I can dip bread in soup, but I don't think I could dip bread in milk. I don't know why. I just don't like. I'm not a huge fan of like plain milk to begin with.
I
I don't
don't
know.
know. Interesting though.
So, and they love this treat mostly because it's hard for them to make it themselves.
Yeah, they don't do the bread. They don't do the milling. They don't capture honey and stuff like that. They don't
And
do
they
any of that
can't
stuff.
and they can't do the milk anymore because of the milk industry and how apparently like technology was, yeah, farms, high-tech dairy farms took over the milk industry. So, and he waits until Toot 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 gets finally sits down and eats the whole meal, and then snap.
I know, but it's funny the way they lead up to it because Toot kind of lingers for a while. He seems to be cautious. It's like he's looking around. He sees the food, rubs his stomach because it's ground. He can't resist. That's one of his favorite snacks. So he can't really resist it, but he's really hesitant, and he finally just gives in and jumps down into it.
Of course, he's hungry, and this is a special treat. And there he goes. He's mad and he's trapped. So he just starts screaming and flying around the perimeter of the circle. He like smacks right into the invisible force, like the invisible force field caused by the circle.
I know,
And I like that he falls on his fairy ass on the earth. He's just like, I should have known.
Yep, that's when Harry comes out from the tree line. He says, "I should have known," and he's mad at himself because he fell for the trick.
He's like, now I remember where I've seen those plates before. You ugly, sneaky, ham-handed, big-nosed, flat-footed, mortal worm. He just throws the insults.
Throwing some insults like crazy. I know.
So, and here we go. Harry tries to make a deal, and Toot's trying to threaten him by telling the queen, and he's like, you can't tell the queen because you know just as well as I do what she would say about any dewdrop fairy who was silly enough to get himself caught with a lure of bread and milk and honey.
Yep, and Toot knows he's right.
Mm-hmm. And Toot tries to threaten him again, like, I will rot your teeth from your head, take your eyes from their sockets, and fill your mouth with dung and your ears with worms. So he's just like, Dresden's like, come on, hit me with your best shot. Come at me, bro.
Yeah, Harry doesn't seem to be too threatened by him at this point.
No, he's not. He called his bluff, And Toot's like, you could at least pretend to be afraid, Harry. He's like, sorry, Toot. I don't have the time to be afraid of your little fairy ass. So, and then Toot starts lecturing on about, time. Oh, everybody complains about not having enough time.
Is that all you mortals even think about? Yeah.
Yeah, you people used to have it right, And Dresden's just taking it, listening to him, complain it on and on. So.
Yeah, so Harry just kind of sits there and takes it, because he says, that Toot never could keep his mind on the same subject long enough to really, be trying in any case.
Yep. And then
he keeps insulting him. He keeps insulting him. And then he says, "Oh, Harry, this is really good stuff. Not any of that funny stuff that we get sometimes. Preservatives." I said, "Whatever." So Toot drank down the rest of the milk, and then he fell promptly on his back, patting his round tummy. "All right, now let me out," because from the beginning, he keeps insisting Harry lets him out, and Harry's not going to let him out until he gets what he needs.
Well, yeah, he's like, I need something first. And Toot's like, you wizards, always needing something. And he's like, I really can't do that thing with the dung, I can do this.
And we didn't mention that earlier, but that's one of the things he threatened him with, to put the dung in his mouth and worms in his ears and all that baloney.
Yeah, so he has on this like lofty tone, like, okay, well, I have deigned to grant you a single request of some small nature for the generous gift of your cuisine.
Well, that's Dresden. Yeah, I know. He says that's kind of you.
He's trying so hard.
He's laughing his butt off.
Like, that's what I love about Harry, because he tries like so hard to be this stoic, mysterious, kind of wizard, but inside he's always, got something. He's always got something going on. He tries so hard to have this mask, but
I know.
inside he's either screaming his head off like a little girl, or he's, laughing his ass off. So,
It's hilarious. That's why when I was reading it the whole time, I kept chuckling throughout the time I was reading it. And there's just these little bitty things that they do.
and two, he's like, it is in my nature to be both benevolent and wise.
What was that?
You're probably hearing the train.
Oh, I just had a follow. I'm not live streaming, but I just had a follow. Okay, thank you. Interesting.
So of course he asks to, I need to know if somebody's been here, the past couple of nights. And Toot's like, all right, well, if I tell you, you need to disassemble this circle.
Right.
And he's like, okay, well, that's reasonable. That's reasonable.
But he's got to hear the promise.
Mm-hmm. He's like, are you sure? Do you promise? And Toot's like, you're ruining the drama. So Toot's a very dramatic little fairy. He loves all the ritual.
Yeah, he does. You can tell he does.
He's like, I want to hear you promise. And Toot's like, oh, fine, fine. I'll dig up what you want to know. So.
But he says, I promise, I promise, I promise. And so he said, a promise made, thrice made, is as close to absolute truth as you can get from any fairy. So I quickly went to the circle and scuffed over the lawn, drying the dirt in the dirt with my foot, willing the circle apart.
And then there goes Toot. And okay, so this
But I like
part
the way
right
they
here,
pointed out, though, there was a little hiss at the release of the energy from the circle.
yeah, kind
Which
of
is
like
cool.
a confirmation, like an actual confirmation that
Right.
it's been dissolved.
Yep. I like that. I like those little details like that when someone writes that in.
Mm-hmm. And Toot goes streaking out over Lake Michigan and vanished with a twinkle. And I like right here, because it kind of, right here where they talk about Santa Claus, reminds me of in the Marvel universe how Santa Claus is like the most powerful mutant, you know? Well, here, Santa Claus is apparently one of the, is a big and powerful fairy.
Yep.
You
And I
know?
like that. I like the way they threw that in.
And they don't know his true name. Dresden doesn't know Santa Claus's true name, so you're not gonna see him try to, capture Saint Nick in a magic circle.
He says you'd never see him trying to do it anyway. Even if I did, I don't think anyone has stones that big. So apparently Santa's really a big deal in the fairy world,
Yep.
in this realm
So I thought
of
that
the
was cool.
Never Never.
Yeah, it definitely reminded me of the Marvel universe. Because Santa is the most powerful mutant. So, and of course he waits, and he waits about half an hour for Toot to come back with the information that he needs, which is apparently Toot's average amount of time to gather information. So
It took him about 30 minutes, and as usual, 30 minutes on cue, Toot comes back.
Yep. And he wants Dresden to play the guessing game, but Dresden is he's so tired at this point. Poor thing. He does not have time for this at all.
He doesn't, and Toot's like, no fun at all. No wonder you can't get a date unless someone wants to know something from you.
Oh, so
Big
they're
slam.
watching him. They're watching him. So that's how you know. It's like, I love it. We're watching you, Harry Dresden. So that makes Harry a little uncomfortable, because like, now what if he's trying to, what if he brings the date back to his house? Those little fairies are gonna be little peeping toms.
And it said Harry's like, I've got to take precautions against that. He's making a mental note to himself. I got to take precautions against that. Not that I'm afraid of him. I just need to be careful.
Once again, he's gonna say, "Oh, I'm not afraid, but just in case." So, and was it he? Yeah, he Toot lands on Dresden's hand.
Well, he goes, incoming!
Yeah,
And then he lands on Harry's hands. Harry doesn't feel the weight, but he does feel the tingle of his magic aura, like a
yep,
little bit of electricity going through his hand and his arm. So it's like, wow, he's a little. So if there's a tingle of magic aura, and Harry can feel that energy, he can't be all that weak. He's got to have some kind of power if
yeah,
Harry can feel it.
yeah. And this part right here, where Toot stares into Dresden's, eyes, because apparently Fey creatures have no souls.
But they
That
also
makes
can't see Harry's soul because they can't see souls themselves.
Yes, and it makes me a little sad because if Santa in here is a fairy, that means Santa has no soul,
Right.
and he can't. That means he has no soul, and that's so sad to me. Like, oh, why did you do that, Jim?
I didn't even think about that, but I guess it really doesn't bother me all that much for some reason. Maybe I have
Uh,
no soul.
oh my goodness. But yeah, when you think about that, it's like so sad. Santa has no soul in this universe. So, and Toot starts gossiping, like, okay, so I talked to Blue Blossom, who talked to Red Nose, who talked to Mago Aspens, who said that the Golden Eyes said that he was raiding the pizza car when it came here last night. And he's all proud of himself for the information that he found. Like, all he found out was about pizza. There was a pizza car that showed up last night.
And I love the way they kind of throw that little Caesar's pizza, pizza, pizza.
Yeah, pizza, pizza, pizza. And um he too gets a little excited about pizza because apparently fairies like pizza.
Oh, Harry, Toot said breathlessly, haven't you ever heard of pizza before?
Well, of course I have. And you didn't share. Like you did, you had pizza
He's
and
all
you
hurt.
didn't share
He's
with
all
me.
acting all hurt.
He's
Look,
like,
maybe I can get you guys some pizza sometime soon. To thank you for your help. Toot, he left. I was like, oh, yes, yes, yes. I can't wait.
like I'm sorry. Like I would be excited too about pizza. I mean, I love pizza. So
Apparently, if Toot helps them, or if Harry brings pizza and it's because of Toot, apparently that's like a big deal in the
that
fairy
means
world because I guess he's the big
yeah,
kahuna or something.
that makes Toot the big man on the block because he got a wizard to bring everybody pizza. He's the best. So he's like, which delivery place? Which pizza place? And he's just like the pizza truck
Like there's
because
only one.
fairies, yeah,
Yeah.
because fairies can't tell the difference between Domino's, Pizza Hut, you know.
Well, they probably
So
don't know the difference. They just know it's pizza because
yeah,
they can't read. They don't understand language or anything like that. So it's
they
just
have no souls.
yeah.
So now he has two pieces of information. Somebody had pizza there, and that meant two things. Someone was there last night, and second, that someone had seen them and talked to them. So if he could track down the pizza driver, he could find out if anybody had seen Victor.
And then the second piece of information was Toot's reference to what they called sporting
Sporting.
and
Mm,
keeping it PG-13. That just meant some freaky shicky licky was going on.
yeah.
So that
And fairies apparently are not too impressed with the mortals' idea of sporting, and they had a knack for messing around and playing tricks on teenagers and stuff like that.
well, actually, no. It's slightly different than that. That the fairies didn't think too much of a mortal's idea of sporting, unless there was a lot of
Oh yeah.
nudity and lust involved. So just,
Yeah.
just normal making out, no, that was nothing. So if the fairies were there watching, it was more than just your normal date
Yeah.
frolicking.
So there must have been some big
Let's,
some big sporting going on.
yeah, let's leave it at that.
Some big sporting. So now he's starting to think that maybe Monica missing husband, you know,
Well, you think she
maybe
was in
she's in,
denial, yeah.
yeah, maybe she's in denial. Maybe her husband wasn't trying to be a sorcerer. Maybe he was just bringing home a side piece,
Yep,
like any other husband bored with a timid and domestic wife might do under pressure,
yep, that's right.
you know. So, and he's apprehensive. He's like, oh, the only problem was going to be telling Monica. I had a feeling that she wasn't going to want to listen to what I had found out. So here he goes. He's picking up his stuff, and he's so tired because he's been going on barely any sleep.
Yeah, he's fussing about his legs aching from too much walking around and standing about, and wanted to go
And
get some
right as
sleep.
he's
So he packed all his stuff up, and
and of course he's got the worst luck imaginable.
he
Out
does.
pops a man with a sword out of the darkness. No sound, completely silent. No whiff of magic or anything like that. Another tall guy. You know, um, he's a big, tall, heavy-chested guy. Um, yeah.
This is the introduction of Morgan,
Yep.
basically.
Yep. Harry Blackstone, Copperfield, Dresden. Irresponsible use of true names for summoning and binding others to your will violates the fourth law of magic. I remind you that you are under the doom of Damocles, so no further violation of the laws will be tolerated. This sentence for further violation is death by the sword to be carried out at once.
Hello,
And that's it.
Morgan.
Yep. And so we finish off chapter 6 and go into chapter 7 with the appearance of Morgan. Basically, the magical equivalent of a parole officer.
Exactly. That's basically what he is. And he starts out
Yeah.
chapter 7. Have you ever been approached by a grim looking man carrying a naked sword with a blade about 10 miles long in his hand? I love the way they described it.
Mm.
In the middle of the night beneath the stars on the shores of Lake Michigan? If you have, seek professional help. If you have not, then believe me, it can scare the bejesus out of you. So apparently, this quite freaked Harry out the way Morgan appeared.
Just appeared out of nowhere.
Oh,
Oh
somebody
my
woke
god.
up. Somebody woke up in the back.
Oh, yeah, puppy. Archer. Archer is awake.
I see that. He's sniffing along his dad. He can go TT right there.
Yeah, he needs to go. He needs to go to the bathroom.
Oh yeah, anytime a
Oh,
puppy wakes up.
they have to go to the bathroom immediately. Alex.
Poor Alex.
He's tired.
And he's got to go to work in a couple hours. He's not. Why isn't he trying to sleep?
Well, it's been a crazy schedule. He did get a lot of sleep today, but he's having to adjust to a new work schedule, so it can be a bit much.
Yeah, that can be rough. Making me tired.
So
So here's
yeah,
Morgan.
I hate Morgan. I hate him so much because he's got it out for Harry.
Well, but in the TV series, which I haven't read all the books, but I've seen the whole TV series, and um, Morgan does hate Harry, but at the same time, Morgan definitely respects Harry's magical abilities because Harry can do stuff most wizards cannot do. And you get a sense of that starting out in this introduction with Morgan right here. Because how else would they come to suspect Harry of what they suspect him of in this
And
particular case. And you'll get into the Harry's past and his history in a minute in chapter 7.
so, Harry doesn't. It says that he doesn't. He reacts badly to fear. He reacts badly to fear. So he's already got a spell coming to his mind, and I would figure that he in fight or flight he'd be more of the flight, but apparently he's more of the fight. So he's more along the lines of the kind of person who, if you jump scare him, he will slap you in the face.
Yeah,
Except this time with magic. It's a primitive sort of
which is
thing,
important.
and one I don't question too much.
And believe me, this is actually important that you learn this about Harry now. I just lost my cap. I'll find it later. It's important that you learn this about Harry now because as you start to learn more about Harry's past, this one piece where you learn that he's more fight than flight kind of helps to explain some of the trouble he's gotten into in the past.
Yeah.
He doesn't run from a fight.
So, so he pulls himself back a little bit because reflex-based murder seems a tad extreme. So he pulls himself back a little bit and just nods as like, "Evening, Morgan. You know as well as I do that those laws apply to mortals, not fairies, especially for something as trivial as I just did." So he's saying, "I didn't break the fourth law." And Morgan's not having any of it. He's like, "That's a technicality, Dresden. A pair of them."
Exactly.
So he's like, he describes them kind of looking similar to Sean Connery. Dresden
The
thinks that
pony,
Morgan
yeah.
looks similar.
Well, no, actually, no.
Except, well,
He says he
the
can't pull
ponytail.
off. He can't pull off. He compares him to Sean Connery, but
Yeah,
he
like
can't. He can't really pull off the look because Morgan's too skinny. He doesn't
yeah,
have Sean Connery's meat and weight behind him.
yeah. So, yeah, Morgan is Harry's warden, which is similar to a parole officer.
Yep.
Assigned to him by the White Council. So, basically, he just hangs around waiting for Harry to mess up on some level.
Apparently, he's one of the deadliest evocators in the world.
Yep. But he's so Harry's not gonna. Harry doesn't want to show fear because Morgan would take it as a sign of guilt that he did something wrong.
Right, and he's got the authority to execute him on the spot, so Harry can't show fear. But he also goes into thinking that Morgan's not smart enough to think of Harry being guilty of this particular murder on his own. So he's already getting into thinking someone on the White Council must have put him up to it. So that's
Yeah.
why he's there.
Yeah. So the White Council is obviously thinking that Harry is powerful enough to perform this kind of magic in order to accuse him. So it's
that's where you start to learn how powerful Harry really is, because you get the feeling that not a lot of wizards can come up with this kind of mojo.
And then it seems like for a moment he's Harry kind of suspects that maybe Morgan might have been the one to kill Tommy Tom and Jennifer just to get Harry in trouble.
Yep.
So, and now we have Dresden trying to defend himself, against Morgan. Like, I'm on a missing persons case. I just called up the ferry. Everyone calls up ferries. I just called him up to get some information. I didn't do anything wrong. And Morgan's just like, technicality. So, Dresden's like, a technicality I'm prepared to hide wildly behind.
I know.
So now he's like, so go ahead. You want to call the council? You want to get all those old daughters over here out of their homes in the middle of the night
Yeah,
just to
Cat
come
Harry's
over
kind of
here?
calling his bluff.
You
Yep.
know, like sure, I mean, you'd be dragging a bunch of really crotchety old men away from their experiments and things for nothing. But if you really think it's necessary,
Call him up, bring him on.
come on.
Yeah, I like the way he
And,
manipulates him and calls his bluff. That's pretty cool.
and then Morgan's like, no, it isn't worth it. So he just, puts the sword away, which, well, makes Dresden relax a little bit because now Morgan's sword is away. So Morgan's obviously very skilled with that sword,
Well,
skilled
not
enough
only
to have,
skilled, but you learn in a couple of paragraphs here that it's actually what gives him his authority. So when he puts it
yeah,
away, he's no longer acting on behalf of the White Council.
yeah, yeah. So when he puts it away, now he's just Morgan,
That's
you
right.
know. Um, and I just did this part right here, and I was just like, why, Dresden? Why? And now Morgan, comes up to him as Dresden's trying to walk past him. Morgan, grabs Dresden's arm and squeezes it a little bit and says, "I'm not finished with you, Dresden." But this is when Harry's like, he's got the sword away. He's just Morgan now. He's not Morgan working for the White Council. So here he goes, and he punches Morgan in the face.
Yep.
I'm just sitting here like, but why? Why? You were so close to leaving. I mean, sure, Morgan had grabbed Harry's hand, but he could have, like, wiggled out. He could have wiggled out of Morgan's grip. But no, no. Dresden just punched Morgan in the face.
Yeah, but that's another tell into Harry's character. I dug it. Excuse me. That's another tell into Harry's character. That's why he's always getting into so much trouble. He won't back down even when he gets it. He's got a chance to get away. One little bitty thing happens, but he's not going to let Morgan push him around like that. He won't let anyone do that. So what does he do? He smacks him in the jaw.
Mm-hmm. I love that he says he took a calculated risk. So I like to think that, yeah, he took a calculated risk, but he is bad at math. He's very bad. He took a calculated risk, but
It
man,
ain't
is he
adding
bad
up.
at math.
It ain't adding up. Well, he seems to kind of get away with it.
Yeah, I mean but it startles Morgan more than anything.
Well, it
Um,
doesn't just startle him. It pisses him off big
yeah,
time.
yeah. I mean, he does draw a little bit of blood,
I mean,
you
this
know.
really irritates Morgan to the extreme. But there's
Mm,
nothing really Morgan can do about it at this point.
no, he's like, "How dare you strike me? Like, excuse you, you know?" And Dresden's got to open his mouth. It
Well,
wasn't
that's
so
like busting
hard.
your parole officer in the mouth. You ain't gonna, no criminal's gonna do that in their right mind.
Yep. He's just like, it wasn't so hard. I'm like, come on, Dresden. You're making it worse by
I know.
opening your mouth. You're
Be
making it
quiet. Yeah.
worse. You
But you
already
see,
punched him in the face.
he can't help himself. He's gonna
No,
keep
he
smacking
can't.
himself in the mouth.
He's like, I saw the steam coming out of his ears. Because he's like, if you've got council business with me, I'm willing to give you whatever respect is your due. When you come on strong to me on personal business, I don't have to put up with it. And that's when he sees the steam coming out of Morgan's ears, and he's trying to find a reason to kill him. But Dresden apparently doesn't think Morgan's that smart anyway.
Well, apparently
He just
Morgan isn't. So
so
it sounds like from the way they set Morgan up that he doesn't really think on his feet all that much. He just kind
no,
of he's more of a I'm going to enforce the letter of the law and I don't go beyond that. So
yeah, he
if
doesn't think for himself. He's basically the arm of the White
yeah,
Council.
so
He
as
does
long as
whatever
Harry
they
doesn't violate any specific law at that point, and apparently hitting Morgan in the mouth is not violating a law, there's not much Morgan can really do or won't do about it.
Yeah. So And Morgan calls him an arrogant little fool, and he's like, yeah, probably. No, he doesn't disagree with Morgan on that little assessment of his character. Um, but he tenses himself, ready to run away if necessary. But he's like, I may not like to run away from what scares me, but I try not to fight hopeless battles either. And Morgan had me by years of experience and 100 pounds at least. There was no law of magic that protected me from him and his fist either.
And well, yeah, and if earlier on in the book when they were describing how the murder was done, Harry's the one that alluded to and said in the writing that Morgan could easily on his own without any extra help have committed those murders and framed Harry for it
Mm-hmm.
because the White Council thinks Harry's capable of doing that in a cold-blooded manner. So
Yeah.
apparently Morgan is super powerful and could easily outwit and kill. Well, not maybe not outwit, but out magic
But out.
Harry and
Yeah.
kill him easily. But Harry knows that, so he's not going to step too far.
But like, is Morgan smart enough to think about doing something like that? You
Obviously
know?
not. He's not
So
because he doesn't think that way. He's
no.
strictly enforcer, and that's his only role, and that's all he knows. He doesn't think
So
outside that box.
yeah, the box of the White Council.
And the box of the letter of the law,
Yeah.
which is the White Council. That's what they represent.
Yeah. And he's like, someone killed 2 people with sorcery last night. I think it was you. And when I find out how you did it, and I can trace it back to you, don't think you're gonna live long enough to cast the same spell at me. And he just wipes the blood away. And this is when Harry makes that connection that if Morgan thinks that he's the killer, that means the White Council thinks that he's the killer.
Or someone on the White Council.
Yeah, someone on the White Council.
The puppy wants you to pick him up.
I know, but he's in play mode, which means if I pick him up, he's gonna try to, lick me and bite my face.
That would be hilarious.
No, his daddy's gonna play with him right now. Sure. So, yeah, and this is when you find out Harry, because obviously he's under the doom of Damocles for a reason, and that reason is that he killed someone. Even if it was in self-defense, he still killed someone.
Well, the fact that he used self-defense is what kept them from murdering him, but he's still basically punished for life.
Mm-hmm. And Morgan, here Morgan once again is like, don't try to hide it, Dresden. I'm sure you think you're clever enough to come up with something innovative that we hidebound old men won't be able to trace. But you're wrong. We'll determine how you did it, and we'll follow it back to you. And when we do, I'll be there to make sure you never hurt anyone again.
Yeah, Morgan really thinks he's going to catch him.
Yeah, and I just, I don't know. I don't like Morgan, and I'm not really a huge fan of the White Council either.
Morgan's character was all right. I liked it in the show, and I like it in the books. I mean, he's not your favorite person, and maybe no one is supposed to like him because he's there to basically try to catch Harry. That's his whole mission in life, is to try to get Harry killed or have Harry killed or kill Harry himself. He wants Harry dead because he thinks Harry's guilty and got away with murder.
Even though, it was in self-defense. And I just, that bothers me. It's like it was self-defense. But, so he's like, oh, well, if you find something out, let me know. If you happen to find something, let me know so I can solve this case.
Yep.
And Morgan's like, you asked me to warn you when we were closing in on you, Dresden. You are young, but I never thought you stupid. And now is when Harry decides to hold back. Now is when he decides, to rein it in, because he knows that Morgan's on the edge of, getting really, really angry.
Well, he needs to. Morgan would kill him.
And I was like, yo, but he didn't want to hold back before. He didn't have to punch Morgan in the face. It's like, okay, I probably still would have hit him in the mouth, but I wouldn't have done it quite so hard. If he'd have known, if he'd have known that Morgan and the White Council suspected Harry of being, the murderer, then he wouldn't have punched Morgan in the face.
Yeah, not that early on. Now he realizes, but yeah, he wouldn't have done it the first time if he knew that.
So he's like, "Good night, Morgan." I told him I started to walk away again before I could let my mouth get me into more trouble. But this is when Morgan gets his payback and punches Dresden in the face.
Payback's, you know what?
And it was obviously a pretty hard punch because he, spun down into the dirt. So he was so stunned, he really couldn't move or breathe or anything. And Morgan's like, "We'll be watching you, Dresden." Hey, no. No. He's so bad.
He's tearing up the new couch.
Yeah. He's so bad.
You have a cat with claws. He's going to do that.
Yep.
Is that leather?
It's fake leather. It's the pleather? Plastic leather.
Yeah, but it's all full of holes.
You, sir, are bad kitty. Him and Archer have been playing. They do play a little bit. So at this point, Harry's on the ground and he has no snappy comeback or anything.
Just laying there in pain.
Yep. Morgan, leaves and he's just, feeling his jaw, make sure it's not broken. He gets into the beetle and he can feel that Morgan's still watching him.
Morgan, I think, is kind of always watching Harry, though. He's never all that far away.
And then he makes the comparison that Morgan's kind of like, he says like a cartoon tomcat, but we know he's talking about Tom and Jerry.
Yes, he is.
So Dresden kind of feels like the mouse and Morgan, the cat. And he feels cheered up by that analogy. Because, he's like, cartoon cats always seem to get the short end of the stick. In the final analysis, maybe Morgan would too. A bad kitty.
He's not even paying attention to you.
No, he's not. He's watching Alex and Archer on the floor. So after meeting Morgan, Dresden is brought back to his angsty teenage days. He's got all these memories being dredged up. So, and this is when you see more of his past, right? He talks about how he had a mentor. His mentor tried to seduce him into the black wizardry, black magic. And, when his mentor tried to kill him, he failed. Instead, Dresden killed his mentor. Apparently mostly by luck. Not from any skill, just from...
Yeah, because he was a lot younger at the time. Yeah. He was a lot younger at the time.
And you find out that the first law of magic is thou shalt not kill. And if someone is found guilty, it's death. So, and half of the council wanted to kill him, but the other half realized that he only killed his mentor because he was being, it was self-defense. But And he says that Morgan belongs to the group that wanted Dresden dead right off the bat. So, and because of that, he was assigned to be Dresden's warden. Just his luck, because he's got like the best luck in the world, right?
Yeah, I know. He's the fact that Morgan showed up at the end of the last chapter shows how unlucky he is. Even casting the simplest spells, they're just accusing him of all kind of crap.
So, plus, like half the council hates him because he practices wizardry openly in the eyes of the public. So he's sure that plenty of them want him dead anyway.
Well, I think it's part of just the hatred. He murdered another wizard. That is their first law of magic. You can't, but their laws also state that if the wizard claims to have used it in defense, he can't be killed. That's why they enacted the law to just kind of put him on permanent probation. One strike and he's dead. They're gonna kill him, and they're knowing based on wizards' temperament and the fact that they're always kind of grumpy. There's no way Harry's gonna live the rest of his life all that long and not get into some kind of trouble and end up they'll have the excuse they need to execute him.
Yeah, so they're just kind of biding their time.
Yeah, that's
And
all they're
with
doing.
someone like Morgan as Dresden's warden, just looking for any small reason, they're definitely he's not gonna let Dresden off.
No.
He's not really sympathetic towards Dresden, so they're not gonna have somebody sympathetic towards Dresden be his warden.
But Harry's using the letter of the law to his advantage because they have to be 100% precise if they're going to execute him. Everything has to be just right. Otherwise, they all get just as much trouble as Harry did. So they have to be really, really careful, apparently, of exactly what they can and can't do. And Harry's using that to his greatest, to every advantage to keep himself alive.
It's such a good thing he's got that quick wit.
Yeah.
I can't say it the same. I don't have quick wit. I have what we call delayed wit.
And I'm
Yeah, you
ain't
don't
saying
say
nothing. Next.
Next,
Stick to the book. Stick to the book.
He gets back in his rinky dink car. He's so tired. And he realizes that now Murphy's investigation has just become very, very important to him because if they don't find a suspect, he's dead.
Well, yeah, I mean, he says there's plenty of people on the White Council who might want me dead. I'll have to start being more careful. So he rolls down the Beetle's windows to help him stay awake, and he's on his way back to his apartment.
And he's like, but to pursue this investigation, I would have to try to figure out how the killer had pulled off that spell. And to do that, I would have to indulge in highly questionable research that would probably be enough to get me a death sentence all by itself. Catch 22. So like he's screwed no matter what, really.
Yeah. Like an impossible situation.
And right here he's like, if I had any respect at all for Morgan's intelligence, I would suspect him of pulling off the killings himself and setting me up to take the blame. But Morgan's not that smart. So
nope. Morgan might twist and bend the rules to get what he saw as justice, but he would never blatantly violate them. So if it wasn't Morgan, who was it? There aren't a whole lot of people that could get enough power to do that kind of magic spell and make it work.
And
unless there was some flaw. Yeah.
So now he's got to talk. He's realized he's got to talk to Bianca, who might have more information, but that's going to piss off Murphy because now he's getting into Murphy's territory, messing with her stuff.
And with him getting involved in talking to Bianca, he can't tell Murphy why because White Council business has to stay secret. Yep. So he's another catch-22. There's no way out of it. He's gonna piss Murphy off, and he can't tell Murphy why.
And he's like, sometimes I think someone up there really hates me. And there are plenty of times where I'm like, same, bruh, same.
I laughed when I read that. That was funny.
So we get into chapter 8, which is one of my favorite chapters because in this chapter we get to meet one of my favorite characters
My absolute
of
favorite,
all.
well, actually, my favorite characters introduced in this chapter. You kind of get to meet two of them. You get to meet two characters, but my personal favorite
Bob.
is Bob.
Yeah.
I figured yours was the cat because you actually get to
No,
meet the cat in
um,
this chapter.
yeah,
I
you
thought you
get
were
to meet
talking about the
Mr.
cat.
No, I was talking about Bob because I like Bob's snark. I mean, he's a bit of a pervert, but he's hilarious and he
And
knows a lot. I love Bob. Mister's adorable. You know, I love Mister too, but Bob is definitely one of my favorite
Bob's
characters.
my favorite character in the series, and what's different between the books and then the TV series, in the TV series, they kind of gave him a human type form. In this, he's just a light spirit, and he never really comes into form. His eyes on the skull glow and all that kind of stuff, and the jaw
He,
flicker. I mean, the
he's
jaw
an
open and close.
he's an air spirit.
Air spirit. Yep,
Yeah,
air
he's an
spirit.
air spirit.
Yeah, that's right. Not
Yes,
light, air spirit.
he's an air spirit. So so yeah, he gets home 2 o'clock in the morning. So and look here, I have like right here where he talks about how he can pretty much guess what time it is just from the position of the stars and the moon. I have a lot of respect for people who can do that. You know, for people out there who can just use like nature itself to tell time or what time of the night or day it is because I can't do that. I like to have my clock, my watch, or my
A lot of
phone.
people can. A lot of people know that trick. A lot of sailors know that trick these days. But anyway,
So he's not, he says he's not going to go to sleep anytime soon. So he needs to do alchemy to unwind, which is an interesting hobby. But I mean, he is a wizard. He's like, I often wished I had some suave and socially acceptable hobby that I could fall back on in times like this. Play the violin, or was it viola, like Sherlock Holmes? Or maybe twiddle away on the pipe organ like the Disney version of Captain Nemo. But he doesn't have any sort of like skills like that. So he's the arcane equivalent of a classic computer geek. He does
yeah.
magic in one form or another, and that's pretty much it. And he's like, I really need to get a life one of these days, you know? So he doesn't have any hobbies except magic. Magic this, magic that. But I mean, really, there aren't that many hobbies out there really that he could do
Not
that
without
don't.
electronics. Yeah, everything
Yeah,
involves electronics. That's probably why he reads paperbacks.
and
You
not
know,
e-readers.
right?
So and he talks about his basement apartment, which is basically 2 floors, but he's got cheaper rent than everybody else in the house because it's an old house that's divided up into lots of different apartments, and he's got the basement and sub basement, which are both his. So, and he loves it. Apparently, he hears all the sounds of the place and how it's got character. It's home. It's his home, and he's very comfortable there. And there's Mister waiting for him at the bottom of the stairs to the front door. An enormous gray cat. Enormous. Kind of like Wizard.
Bigger than some dogs.
Yeah, he's definitely way bigger than Wizard.
Yeah,
Um,
35 pounds with no fat. That's a lot of muscle. That's little
mhm.
Arnold. That's why I called him Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. Um, so Dresden suspects that, maybe Mister's father was like a wildcat or a lynx or something. And he doesn't have a tail. It was probably torn off or something. He's not sure if it was by a dog or a car, because Mister hates both dogs and cars, and either attacks or flees from both on sight.
Yep.
So apparently one of those, messed with Mister when he was little.
And
He's
I love this part. I love this part. I
he's
really
like,
do. This is cool.
I thought you had a hot date. I told him. He sauntered over to me and rammed one shoulder playfully against my knee. I wavered, recovered my balance, and unlocked the door. Mister's a huge cat to make Dresden nearly fall on his butt.
Yep. And he's
And Miss,
recovered enough of his dignity to where Mister thinks he's the apartment's tenant, and
yep,
Dresden is just somebody that hangs out and kind of
and you know,
just tolerates him.
yeah, Mister definitely has the run of the place.
Yeah, and I like the way he
So,
said that. I wavered, recovered my balance, and unlocked the door. Mister, as was his just due, entered before I did.
of
So
course,
obviously the cat runs the place, or thinks he
yep,
does anyway,
yep.
and Dresden just lets him do.
So, and he talks about how his apartment doesn't have, of course, it has no electronics. He doesn't. It has lights, but even the lights are wonky, so he has to use candles, and he's got a fireplace, and a charcoal stove
A
to cook
kitchenette,
from.
which is important. He doesn't have a full kitchen. He's got one of those corners in the room that's kind of just a
Mhm.
small little kitchen area.
Yep. So the place apparently smells like wood smoke and charcoal no matter what he does, because he has a vent to vent out all the smoke, but it's always going to smell like that.
Yep.
So he so he talks about why wizards wear robes, because it's always cold in their
In the
labs.
labs, yeah.
Because his lab is in the sub basement. So his apartment is in the basement, and then his lab is in the sub basement, and his lab is I think he says that his lab is completely covered with like tapestries and carpets and stuff.
He's got it completely covered, and I like the part too. We didn't talk about that part yet, but it kind of explained his rent's cheaper than most everybody else in the apartment building. They all have single apartments, and he's got the two bottom floors, the basement and the sub basement. But yet his rent's cheaper than anyone else's
I
because
mean,
nobody
that's
wants
pretty
those
cool.
two. I think it'd be
Yeah.
pretty cool. It sounds pretty
Yeah,
ideal,
it sounds
especially
cool.
going down into the sub basement, which is where you're heading next with the lab and all that. That sounds really awesome.
He has his own little lab.
And that's where he works.
And then he's a modern wizard, so instead of just like he's got Tupperware, he's got Tupperware that he keeps his ingredients in, and just all a hodgepodge of different jars and containers and stuff, and all the odds and ends, and notebooks and stuff, just all over the place. And then of course here you go, that one um bleached white human skull. Bob.
Yep, and he tries to wake him up.
And here you go. Come on, lazy bones. Like, really, Dresden? Really?
That's a good one. I like that line. And then he finally sees a pair of lights come up in the empty sockets of the skull, orangish, flickering like candle flames.
He's like, it isn't enough that I have to wake up. I have to wake up to bad puns. What is it about you that you have to make the bad puns? And Dresden's like, quit whining. We've got work to do.
Yeah, so they kind of allude to the fact that an air spirit sleeps.
Yeah, he
Really?
sleeps. Yeah, apparently so. He sleeps.
How does he need sleep?
I don't know. That's I guess being Dresden's partner can be pretty exhausting, even for an air spirit.
Give me 1 second. I'm coming.
Welcome back. What's that? Oh,
Coffee nut
M&Ms.
flavored M&Ms.
Mm. We've got a big bag of the caramel M&Ms the other day.
Those are
The
mom's
girl,
favorite.
the girls love the caramel M&Ms.
They would. That's mama's favorite. Her
So
absolute. And she's gonna love the fact that that's their favorite.
yeah, that's their favorite. They love the caramel M&Ms. So here's Bob's introduction, where Dresden talks about he's an air spirit, sort of like a fairy, but different. Um, he is, he's magically attached to the skull, and it's his job to remember things. He's supposed to be like a partner to wizards, and he's been a partner to other wizards even before Dresden.
Yeah, but
Um,
I like the way they describe him as kind of like the wizard's version of the internet or whatever.
yeah, he can't use it because Dresden can't use a computer, so that's why he has Bob. So Bob's kind of like the internet for wizards. He just keeps all the information that he's had like over the years. So he knows how like all these different potions to make and spells and anything that I knocked over. Oops. Huh. Knocked over one of my speakers. But anyways, yeah, Bob has a vast repertoire of knowledge and a really cocky attitude. So,
Yeah, he is pretty sassy.
so he's like, "Okay, Bob, we're gonna make a couple of potions. Sound good?" And he's like I have a choice. What's the occasion? So, apparently, Bob has the ability to whistle, but I guess it would be easy for an air spirit to whistle, even though he doesn't have lips.
Or a body.
So, yeah, or a body. So, and here Bob makes a bargain with him, like, let me out for a ride and I'll tell you how to get out of this situation that you're in.
I know, that's pretty cool.
And Dresden's like, I let you out once. And Bob's reminiscing dreamily that, yeah, the sorority house. So
Yes.
Bob's a pervert. Bob's a bit of a pervert.
Yes, he
And,
is.
and Dresden's like, you're supposed to be a spirit of intellect. I don't understand why you're obsessed with, physical acts. And of course, Bob's like, it's all academic. It's academic. It's for
Mm-hmm.
research. It's research.
Right.
Uh-huh. So he's like, you're insulting my masculinity, and Dresden's like, you're a skull. You don't have any masculinity to insult.
Not at all.
I love their back and forth. I really do. He's like, oh, and then here's where Bob really like jabs him. He's like, pot, kettle, black. Harry, have you gotten a date yet? Most men have something better to do in the middle of the night than play with their chemistry sets. Ooh, and Jess is like, well, yeah, I got a date Saturday night.
Ooh, is she pretty?
Ooh, yeah, ooh, is she pretty? Yes. Like dark skin, dark hair, dark eyes, legs to die for, smart and sexy as hell. And of course, and Bob's like, think she'd like to see the lab? Because he wants to see her.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe to see if she's real. And like, oh man, and Bob's like, if she's so great, what's she doing with you? You aren't exactly Sir Gawain,
That's really punching him every chance he gets.
And he's like, Harry, what you know about women, I could juggle. Like he's just throwing them at him, throwing these insults.
He insults the heck out of Harry a lot.
And poor Harry is like, yeah, he's probably right about me. Not that he would admit it to Bob, but yeah, Bob's right. Bob's right about me.
He doesn't have to admit it to Bob. Bob knows.
So apparently they're going to make an escape potion. And there's this saying, there's always room to make two if you're making one. So because the process of mixing up alchemical potions is a lot of, stirring, simmering, and waiting. So you could always make more than one at a time. 3 is kind of pushing it, but you can always make 2 at the same time. So Dresden, of course, is like, okay, so we'll make 2 escape potions. And Bob is like, no, try something new. And
Oh yeah, it stretches up a
yeah,
little.
yeah. And he suggests a love potion.
Oh, doctor.
Because, of course, Bob is going to think about, love potions. And, and he has to, and this is when, he's like, no, I'm not doing that. And then Bob just like, fine, no love potion, no escape potion either. And then, he disappears. The light in the skull winks out. And this is where Dresden has to make a compromise. He's like, if I want this escape potion, I'm gonna have to make this freaking love potion. And so, I mean, he even tries to threaten him first to like, I'm gonna throw you down in the deepest well I can find, and no one will ever find you. But that doesn't work. He's like, because Bob's like, I'm too valuable. You're not gonna do that.
Well, I
Like
like the
Bob,
way when it starts, Bob goes silent, the lights in the skull go out, and they finally wake up after Harry threatens to throw him down a well. And he says, "No, you're not. I'm too valuable." And then
I'm
they go
too.
out again.
Yep, yep. Because he's almost like a child, but he can't make the Harry can't make the potion by himself. Not
Well,
really. He could try, but it might not have as powerful of effect.
actually, what it is Harry knows how to do stuff. He just doesn't know the right recipe. Bob does.
Yeah, and potions are tricky to begin with.
He's got
There's a
the
lot of
skill to make the potions. He just needs the correct recipes. Harry knows the
um
process.
yeah, but he does say that potions are tricky
Hmm.
and they're very there's a lot of precise details. So he doesn't he doesn't want to make a mistake. And it's just safer to have Bob to dictate to him what he needs to do. And he's like, well, I don't have to use the love potion. I can make it, but I don't have to use it. And that right there is like, I could just see shenanigans ensuing,
Hmm.
you know? So, and apparently potions are only good for a couple of days. So if you make it, and you don't use it soon, it will go
It
bad.
fades out. Yeah, it fades out.
But I mean, like, you're not going to go through all that process of the perfect details and perfect ingredients and make a potion and not use it right away anyway.
And the length of the potion actually makes sense because it takes a lot of energy to create it. The energy dissipates over time.
Yeah. So, of course, he kind of thought like he does think about maybe if Susan wants a
Using it.
demonstration
Uh
of
huh.
magic, he could probably find some use for the love potion.
That
But
he doesn't
that
want to do it.
no, because that would be admitting that he can't get a woman to do anything with him on his own. That he would need magic. But you know, he really does need that escape potion. So he agrees to Bob's deal. He's like, fine, I'll make the escape potion and a love potion. Um, I love this part right here because he's like, don't I always make the potions exactly as you say, Bob? He's like, what about that diet potion or the anti gravity potion?
I know.
so
Well, that
that
was a mistake.
so that's that tells you right there that Dresden has experimented a little bit with some of those potions and it did
Mm-hmm.
not go so well. That's so
Because he doesn't
so
listen.
so here we get into the ingredients of the potions, which I find very interesting because apparently they take like 8 ingredients for the different
All
senses.
potions do. Yeah.
Yeah, they all potions take like 8 ingredients to do with the 5 senses, and then something for the mind and something for the spirit. So, um, so they talk about like for I guess this one for right here is yeah, this one right here is for the escape potion, and it's like what um a drop of motor oil, 8 ounces of Jolt Cola, and he has to cut a bird's feather into tiny shavings. So, and look, 3 ounces of chocolate covered espresso beans.
Sounds good to me.
I haven't had espresso, like chocolate covered espresso beans in a long time. So he's got all these really weird ingredients for to make the escape potion. And he's like, smells terrible, and Bob's like, they usually do.
A shredded bus ticket.
Um, yeah, shredded bus ticket, a small chain, and unfolded a shadow. He also put a shadow in there. And apparently what this escape potion does is it makes him like an air spirit. It turns him into air.
So he
So
can
like
get
the
away
wind.
unseen. Yep.
The wind. The love potion. Oh my goodness. Requires like you're supposed to have champagne, but Bob's like, I substitute tequila in there. Get some, more loose.
Yeah, that's kind of wicked.
um, a sleazier result. And Bob's like, hey, who's the memory spirit here, me or you?
Exactly.
So my phone went off.
I know you got a text
Yeah, I did. I'll answer that in a bit.
at 1 o'clock in the morning.
It was Shelby.
Oh, sir.
Um, so they've got tequila, which tequila and what like chocolate, 3 ounces of dark chocolate.
Because chicks like chocolate.
Mm-hmm. And Bob has some experience because apparently he was seducing shepherdesses since before Harry was even a twinkle in his great great ancestor's eye. So Bob knows what he's doing. And of course, he's like, okay, so we've got the tequila, the dark chocolate, some perfume that Harry likes, an ounce of shredded lace, and the last sigh at the bottom of a glass jar. And he added some candlelight, and, it took on a rosy glow. Oh, but that's not it. No, that's right. They have to add the ashes of a passionate love letter. Harry doesn't have that. So what does Bob suggest that he use?
Something Harry didn't know was there.
A romance novel of the saucy variety.
Uh huh.
And
And Bob gives him this particular page and paragraph to put in there. What?
mhm. So he's like, okay, is this really gonna work? Of course, women eat these things up, trust me. Like, come on. He keeps questioning Bob, but Bob knows what he's doing. He also needs diamonds, but he doesn't have any diamonds. So Bob tells him, and this part made me hurt a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Throw in a $50 bill.
His last $50 bill.
And he has to rip it up and put it in there. And I'm just like, oh God, that hurts. That hurts to have to shred up a $50 bill. Throw that in there.
Money, Bob said. Very sexy.
So, what I like about this part is it talks about, okay, once the potions are mixing, now you need the energy, because an energy from magic can come from a lot of different places.
Yeah, so the ingredients aren't all that's important. It's the focus and concentration of the energy.
Yeah. So, and I can kind of relate to him because I'm an emotional person. And he's like, he's got all of these emotions.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of worry to fuel his magic. A lot of worry
And annoyance.
and annoyance and stubbornness. So it seems like he doesn't have any problem conjuring up the energy that he needs to put into these potions. So
Nope, he's got plenty of it.
I can relate. I think I'd be, pretty good with potions if I had a little skull dictating to me what to put together, and because I have a lot of emotions and feelings to be able to put towards
No, you don't.
the energy. Yes, I do. Don't I do? What? What? Oh, the puppy's going down to sleep again. So there he goes. He puts all of his worries and anxieties and emotions into the potions, and Bob's like, I love this part, and there we go. They're simmering. They're sitting there. And of course, with that kind of energy, it's going to leave you exhausted. So Dresden's extremely tired. Like, come on, go to bed. You need sleep now.
He's all wiped out. But that gives you a really good idea of how much energy it takes to get the
It takes a lot.
potions to actually become active, I guess is the right word.
And he puts the potions into sports bottles. See, you get you think, oh, potions, they're gonna go in those little round like vials or something. But no, he puts them in a sports
Nope.
bottles because
Just in a sports bottle. Yep.
he's a modern wizard. Oh, and obviously this comes from some experience apparently, where he writes very clearly in permanent, magic marker
Which one is
that
which?
because apparently there was an invisibility hair tonic incident.
That he so fondly references here?
I'm like, okay, so now, this is why I have to label these. Like, of course, that's a lesson well learned right there.
Yep.
So, and Bob's like, this is the best potion I've ever made. And Harry's like, I made it, not you. But, he's exhausted. So he's really not going to fight Bob that hard.
But the back and forth between the two of them continues.
Yeah, I love it. I love their relationship and their back and forth.
Bob's so sassy. I really like that character.
Yeah. So, yep, he goes to bed, and Mister, comes and sleeps. Mister sleeps with him. I love that. Wizard doesn't sleep with me. Wizard will come and like sniff my hair after I wash it, but he won't like sit. He won't lay there. He will get up and run off. So jealous, Harry. So
So he's got his agenda laid out for the next couple of days. He's got to talk to a vampire, locate a missing husband, avoid the wrath of the White Council, and find a killer. I'd take a nap
before,
too. I'd take a nap too.
so at this point, he's just not going to let anything bother him, so he could just go to sleep.
Yep.
And that's how we end chapter 8.
Yep. He has to. I mean, he's got a lot to do the next couple of days. Yeah, it's interesting the way you're as we get into we're going into chapter 9. You're learning with each chapter that he gives you a little bit more to learn about Harry, and he's like introducing characters almost on a 2 by 2 basis because there's not that many he's putting
Yeah.
into each chapter. But and we hadn't even met Bianca yet, had we? Did he talk to
No.
Bianca once?
No, he didn't talk to Bianca yet. No.
They just described her in like chapter
Yeah.
2 or something like that.
Yeah, they described her, but we haven't met her just yet. So yeah, there's a lot that I've forgotten about this book. So it's kind of interesting coming back and reading it and looking at it a lot closer.
Yep.
And that's what I love about this. You look at the books a lot closer than you usually would. So,
depending on how far we want these to go from now on, each one doing 4 chapters each time is taking almost 2 hours. So if we reduce it to an hour, we may have to do like 2 chapters. If we want to do like just a 1 hour podcast, if we want to break it down a little bit further.
I kind of like this.
Well, we'll be back in a week or maybe 2 weeks with the third part. and we'll be
Yeah,
reviewing chapters 9, 10, 11, and 12, I would assume.
yep. And we're doing this because we love books. We read a lot. We absolutely love books. So, if you're interested, keep watching.
And hopefully, we'll get better and better at this as we go.
Yeah, the more comfortable we get.
I gotta try and not be as sleepy.
Yeah, take a nap.
But I slept. That's the weird part. But anyway, we thank everybody for watching. We appreciate it. We hope y'all enjoyed it, and stay tuned for
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
Appreciate it, everyone. Good night.